Corey Graves himself favorited a tweet of mine this past Monday, this week, following the Raw pre-show, which he co-hosts with David Otunga and Scott Anderson, I believe, is the other guy's name. But so anyway, now that name dropping's aside, we got into it on Twitter. Me and show listener, we'll call him G-Man. We'll call him for for show purposes. But so me and G-Man on Twitter, we're not fighting or anything, but just having a very good intellectual discussion and debate in regards to my comments that I made in regards to Shawn Michaels' comments. But so anyway, I'll fill you in on that when we get to the bit. Bottom line for the outline, it resulted in me promising and following through on that promise and making my top 10 greatest wrestlers of all time list. Because Shawn Michaels on the show, on Raw, claimed that he was, in fact, the greatest wrestler of all time. Those are his exact words that he used. The greatest wrestler of all time. Not the greatest superstar. The greatest wrestler of all time. Very meaningful, specific industry terms that anyone in the business would all take a very specific, certain, same way. And I laughed and scoffed and tweeted to Shawn Michaels himself, who did not respond to me, unfortunately, that he was, not only was he not the greatest wrestler of all time, he's not even in the top 10 greatest wrestlers of all time. And then I got called out by G-Man, said, okay, top 10, go. And I told him, well, I can't tweet you, a top 10 for free, but I can give you the official top 10 greatest wrestlers of all time, according to Scotty Ball, on Balls Deep Sports Talk, for all of my Balls Deep Army and weekly Balls Deep goers to hear and enjoy. So you will have that top 10 greatest wrestlers of all time list to look forward to in the show as well. All right, so that is an outline of everything we've got coming up on the show, jam-packed. And we're already over our first 15 minutes, so let us, get down to it with our hit opening segment of every week here on the show. Say it with me, and then if you're playing the Balls Deep drinking game at home, take your drink. Ready on 3, 1, 2, 3. Balls on fire. Yes. Hold on a second. That diet squirt is some refreshing stuff. Alright, so what to choose for this week's Balls on Fire? If I was a bigger Minnesota Gophers fan, their shellacking at the hands of the Nebraska Cornhuskers this past Saturday would definitely have been more of a consideration. However, I don't care that much. I follow it, somewhat. I follow it semi-decently, semi-closely. But I just don't care that much, and I can't help it. So no Gophers. College football, man, the end of the Michigan State game, watched it live, and then, saw the replay of the last play of the game a million times afterwards. Again, if I was a fan of either one of those schools, that would be the starting topic, but I'm not. So, not starting with college football. Gotta save the, Louisville, Rick Pitino, recruits, strippers, escorts bit for the Balls Juice segment. NFL football, that's, football's kind of got its own segment now called The Spew. That's right, and we're not on The Spew yet. We're starting with Balls on Fire. Everything else is pretty much quickie, with the exception of NASCAR and WWE, but just not quite enough there that I'm fired up about. So we are going to start with Major League Baseball yet again here on the show. You're welcome, baseball fans. I was in talks or communication, I should say, with my baseball guru expert earlier today, Mr. Clean. He gave me a bunch of great history, team history and statistics in regards to championships, because he was listening to last week's show and heard me and made note of me asking for that kind of information from you guys, the fans, to help confirm that my thought on just all the teams that are left, like, they're all kind of the underdog, never win at all, happy with any of their time being this time type of teams. So I got plenty of good stats there for you. I also got a phenomenal stat that does not bode well for what were up 3-1 Kansas City Royals. I believe they're now up 3-2. As Toronto earlier today faced the Kansas City Royals in a possible elimination game, down 3-1, and they were in fact victorious. So the series is now 3-2, going back to Kansas City for Game 6, and possibly and hopefully a decisive Game 7. Now, up 3-1, 3-2, what's exactly the stat that doesn't bode well for Kansas City? Well, to preface it properly, the actual stat itself is impressive and historic and positive on the Kansas City side. So let's start there. All right, so the Royals have scored 33 runs in the first 4 games of this American League Championship Series against the Toronto Blue Jays. That is insane. That's like over 8 runs a game. That's just a barely over 8 runs a game average. Phenomenal. They're the third team ever to score 33 or more runs in the first 4 games and lead 3-1. Okay, so that's all amazing, great, historic stuff. Third team ever to score 33 or more games, 33 more runs, in the first 4 games of a series and go up 3-1. Here's where the bad news comes in. Because remember, I told you it didn't bode well for Kansas City. Here's where the bad news comes in. The only other 2 teams that have ever done that have accomplished that same feat prior to Kansas City doing it now, both went on to lose the series 4-3. So everybody knew that going into not everybody knew that, but anybody who was familiar with the stat had access to that stat before the game today. I would think, it would have come up at some point in time with the teams, especially the Royals. Geez, why wouldn't you dig that out and throw that in their face, plant the seed in their head? And here we go. Kansas City could have just squashed it and went nope, kept playing amazing and went nope. But instead, Toronto ends up with the win today. And they will have to go back to Kansas City to try and close this series out and advance to their second consecutive World Series. Now, as I'm sure my loyal listeners know, I am, pulling more for the Blue Jays than I am for the Kansas City Royals, although I am happy. I'm on record as saying that I am happy with any of these 4 teams winning it. They're, like I said, they're all franchises that have not had a lot of success. So here's a little bit of proof to that pudding, okay? Of the teams that are left, Toronto has won, let's see, they won back-to-back World Series in 92 and 93, and that's it. And they're the most recent. And then the Royals have only won once, and that was in 1985. The Cubs have not won since 1908, as very well publicized. And the Mets have not won since 1969. I believe their only World Series championship as well. That was the, Miracle Mets. Yep. All right. Okay, so the Mets won they won in 69, the Miracle Mets, and then again in 86. All right, so the Mets have 2 World Series, 86 and 69. The Blue Jays have 2 World Series championships, 92 and 93. The Royals have 1, 1985, and the Cubs have 1, basically, that we remember. And that was back in 1907, 08. So, again, I cannot thank my exclusive baseball guru correspondent extraordinaire, Mr. Clean, for these great facts supporting my statement last week that, all 4 of these franchises are lovable underdogs who it's just awesome to see that one of them is finally going to have their day here now again, because it's been a long time for any of them. And again, 2 championships is the most that any of these 4 teams have left. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. There's 6 combined championships amongst these 4 teams. The Yankees alone have 26, 27, 28, 29, somewhere in there, one of those 4 numbers, high 20s. So I mean, again, just as a Minnesotan, don't you know, we love the underdog because we're always an underdog. So happy no matter who wins it. But I am pulling a little more for Toronto because I picked Toronto, and I am also pulling a little more for the Cubs. We'll get into that in just a second. I did want to give you one last fun fact, statistic, from Mr. Clean, my baseball guru. The New York Mets, they're more impressive than their 2 World Series wins in 69 and 86. They hold an all-time baseball record, okay? An all-time regular season baseball record. The Mets hold the record for the worst record in baseball during a 162-game season. Going 40 and 122 or 42 and 122, 40 wins, 120 losses, and that was in their inaugural year of 1962. Worst season any team's ever had under the modern era season length, with 40 wins and 120 losses. Wow. So yeah, great fun fact there. Now, that segues us into the Mets-Cubs series. Cubs are down 3-0 tonight at home, facing elimination and a sweep at the hands of the Mets. Chicago got there by defeating the Cardinals, the best team in all of baseball, who won the division that the Cubs are in. They share a division. If you didn't know that, you should know that, but not everybody knows this stuff. And then you had the Mets as the 3 seed of the division winners beat the 2 seed Los Angeles Dodgers. And that was a really good series. Had the Chase Utley taking out the guy on the, to break up the double plate thing, and can they suspend him? Can't they suspend him? Some good drama and storyline there. I picked the Dodgers to win that one, but I'm plenty happy that the Mets won. I got nothing against the Mets as a franchise or a team whatsoever, okay? And flip side, while I'm rooting for the Cubs because I picked the winner of the Cubs-Pirates wildcard game to go to the World Series, even though technically I ultimately picked Pittsburgh to win that game. That's besides the point. I do not have any strong, fandom ties to the Cubs. I like the Cubs. I don't love the Cubs. The only reason I like to see them win is the same reason I like to see any of these other underdogs win, because they're underdogs. So, What's my problem with baseball?